Welcome back to YourTown. I'm Marianne Leffel, Monterey County Business Council. We've got a great show today. We're going to talk about kind of defense. We're going to talk about a little data. We're going to talk about technology. And we're going to talk about what's possible here in your town. So, Yolanda Clarke.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for having me.
I was so excited when I first heard about you and your company about 18 months ago now. And so I think we really need to backtrack and say, how did Powder River Industries get started?
It's been a journey, and I will say thank you for being one of our early supporters. You really did get in pretty much in on day one, so we owe a lot to the support we've received from the county and the local area. But the idea started a long time before that. Have a little bit of a colorful career, and one of the jobs I had, I did teaming agreements and proposal development for a little company called Lockheed Martin, and worked a lot of pretty large deals. And there is a congressional requirement that at least 23% of all federal contracts go to small business, and that's managed by the Small Business Administration. And I did hundreds and hundreds of teaming agreements with large, medium, small companies, and it was a struggle and a bit of stress to find small businesses that you felt confident in and that could withstand the rigor of the regulated environment, as well as the quality standards of excellence that a company like Lockheed Martin requires. And that's where the idea kind of started, okay. Right? And so all those elements of rigor and regulation became design elements when I started to form Powder River Industries, or PRI. And so that's where I started. I formed the company in 2014 and just started plugging away at those design elements. So DCAA compliance, which is Defense Contract Accounting, is it Contracting Audit Agency. The small business certifications for HUBZone, woman-owned, service-disabled, veteran-owned, all of those major requirements that are often overlooked at the beginning. But if you don't plan them in the beginning and try to back into them later, you're looking at redesign and a lot of costs and a lot of headache that I just didn't want to do. So I wanted to start right.
Now let me stop you a minute. So on that, if, for instance, because we see it with the Procurement Technical Assistance Center that
Right.
the Business Council has, what we see is someone sees a contract that they pretty sure they could fulfill, but they don't have one of those designations. So that's really what you're talking about, that you see something and you're like, wow, I could do this, but then you're not a service, a veteran-owned. You are, but you don't have the designation.
Right.
So then you can't really compete.
Exactly.
So
it doesn't, all of those monikers, those designators, they don't preclude us from competing anywhere, but they do allow us good positioning to compete for those things where others cannot compete. And so I just wanted to make sure that my teams, my partners, my customers, that we could really bring them the best we had through whatever avenue they needed to go through. Because there's a lot of different ways that the government, federal, state, local, there's a lot of ways they can buy. But I wanted to make sure that we had all of those channels open for our customers. And so that groundwork and infrastructure was pretty well set, and so we were able to go into operations in June of 2016 and have just been growing and going ever since.
So I think you've got just about every designation that's possible.
There's there's 5 mandatory categories that the SBA has. So that 23% is further decomposed into the 5 mandatory categories. So HUBZone, woman-owned, veteran-owned, service-disabled, veteran-owned, and 8A. 8A is actually a paragraph number of U.S. code. It's not really creative naming, but they're presumed categories, and then there are defendable categories. So the SBA recommends that you're in operations for at least 2 years before you submit for your 8A certification.
Okay.
So our package is complete. And I'm waiting until July when we'll be 2 years old, and then we'll push that packet in and we'll let the process run. And if we are granted that certification, we will have all the 5 mandatory categories.
That's pretty fabulous.
Yes, it is. It has been a staggering experience, but really, really worthwhile. I understand small business so much more than I did before, and and pairing that with my large business experience, feel much better prepared to assist our customers in finding solutions for their problems, whatever their problems are. And many times it is an acquisition challenge that is precluding them from getting to the good or the service that they're looking for. So having a lot of tools that we can bring to the table, which I really look at those as design elements or tools, it's just helpful.
Well, sitting on the government side of things, and I'll just use the airport as a good example since I'm on the board, it's really hard because we have the mandate to hire out of certain categories.
Right.
But it's very hard sometimes to find the expertise that has the required paperwork in order to do it. And one of the things that we looked at years and years ago here was I'm going to take building and design as a good example. We had a lot of maybe $20 million companies, but then they couldn't get bonded for the bigger jobs that came. So we talked about, let's band some of you together, and maybe, just maybe, you can do one of these contracts. But, then you get egos and other things in there also. And I'm sure a company like Lockheed Martin has a huge problem with it, with their mandates of trying to find the right suppliers and the right services.
I mean, Lockheed is my experience, but I know every large company in just about every industry that the federal government does work in has that same challenge. Construction, for sure, technology, services, all across the board. It is a challenge. Some do better than others, and I will give a lot of credit to the SBA and the different agencies. There has been a really big push to try to meet their goals. But there's a lack of education, honestly, and experience on the small business side. And being on the other side of things, I know now how much work it is and how much effort it is to stay on top of your good or service, your products, your business case, your financing, your customer intimacy, and knowing where they're at and what they need, the regulations around everything that you're doing, the contracting climate and what's going on there. So it is a huge lift on behalf of the small business to try to come to the table fully prepared. There are always blind spots, and that's where organizations like the PTAC or SCORE and some of the new business incubators are also really helpful, are an absolute requirement if you want to be a successful small business, I think, because they help share that burden with you.
Absolutely.
And that burden of knowledge, and they stay up on the latest changes, and you go in for your mentorship session, and they're catching you up on all of the things that happened. Like you would need 8 lawyers to just review all of the codes. They're constantly changing that affect your industry. You just can't. It's too expensive. So services like the PTAC are invaluable.
When let's see, this is going to be our 4th year with PTAC, and it's interesting because when our former congressman Sam Farr told me he wanted me to go do that, I was like, no. And I fought it for a couple of years, and finally he got more insistent, and I was like, okay, well, we'll do it. So
thank you.
Yeah, we had a fabulous woman by the name of Kim Ha, and I said, Kim, I don't care, just take a week, don't do anything else, and go research it and figure out if it's something we could do. And she wrote the proposal, and we got it. And it's through the Defense Logistics Agency,
Right.
which is, of course, part of the Defense Department. But I didn't even know what any of that stuff was when we first got it. It was kind of like buying a pig in a poke, You just go, okay, this is it. We're going to do this. And we got the call, I think, on August the 25th saying we're sending you the contract. Has to be back by the 27th, and your contract will start on September 1st.
Wow.
And we didn't have an employee. We didn't have a desk for the employee. We didn't have anything.
Wow.
So we put it together.
Yeah.
We were able to do it. And we were able to find Brooks Merritt, who had the contracting experience through NPS, through his Navy career. And then he worked for Rollins and Associates. So we were fortunate to have someone who had some experience here in the community, which is a good thing. With the amount of contracting and military expertise in this area, we've been pretty fortunate to find some really good talent.
Yeah, Brooks, Cam, Terry, Dennis, they're all fabulous, and they're all experts in their own niche, and it's such a big customer space.
It is.
You have to have that focus, and I have separate mentorship plans with each of them. As my company's grown and as we're maturing and as we're hitting different growth milestones, what I needed 18 months ago and what I need today are very different. And I don't know if you ever really get out of startup. You just move to the next milestone and you have to start again, and there's all these things you didn't know. So we just actually had a session last week where it was like, put all the cards on the table, okay, and now let's plan for the next growth milestone together, but let's be more focused and definitely deliberate about what we're trying to achieve and when we plan to achieve that. So they're fabulous.
But Yolanda, I think part of it is, and you said it, you put all your cards on the table. A lot of times, and I came 45 years in banking. So a lot of times a client will tell you something or part of it, what they think they need to tell you. But really what you needed to know was the one thing that they're holding back. And sometimes you can keep probing and you can get that. And other times you never get to that. And so no one really achieves the full potential without, I think, saying, this is really what I have, and this is where I think my holes are. And sometimes your hole may not even be where you know it is. My best, I think, statement I ever used to give to every client, especially those starting out or those trying to grow, was if you've got a talent or a skill, do what you do the best, and then hire somebody else to do the rest, because you cannot be your payroll department and your HR department while you're trying to go and get new contracts and new clients. It's virtually impossible once a company starts growing to try to be in charge of every single facet of it, particularly if you've got employees.
Yeah, I agree. I think, not to make the whole thing about the PTAC, but I think you have to give trust to get trust.
Yes.
And if you want to get the most out of, like as a mentee, if you want to get the most out of your relationship with your mentor, you have to give first so that they can trust you. Because like yourself, you have 45 years of experience. Are you going to give your best resources to someone who's not showing up and giving you everything they have? So I think that's important to do with any mentor, and that's certainly something I try to practice as much as I can. You don't know what you don't know, but this is what I've got to work with, guys. And then they're going to be more willing to give you more time, more of their best resources, and help you get to the next level, because you don't have time. You can't vet your accounting resource. You can't vet your contracting resource. You don't know. You just have to trust that your mentor's giving you really good advice. But they might be mentoring 20 people. So you're kind of competing in a way for the best resources. And so they can't give their best resources to everybody, but they will make an investment where they see they're going to get a return. So I think starting that trust first is really important to get the most out of those.
And I totally agree. I'm always reminded of a guy who was referred to me, and I found him annoying. And so I finally gave in because the person referring him to me was somebody that I respect. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. And I went in with a little bit of an attitude, thinking, okay, this is going to be about 30 minutes. And after about 2 hours,
wow,
I said to him, okay, this is what we're going to do. You go someplace and get a cup of coffee. I'm going to make some phone calls, and I'm going to clear my afternoon, and I'm going to see if we can go see the next 4 or 5 people that I think you need.
Wow.
And we were able to take that and make it into something. But I could never have gotten there with the attitude I had toward him coming into it if he hadn't been really open with me when he sat down and started telling me about what his plans were. Mm-hmm. And he had been 2 years trying to find the right people to help him. And we were able that afternoon to get him to all the right departments within jurisdictions.
Wow.
And to move him along. So it's kind of a crazy thing like that sometimes, you just all of a sudden you see kind of like the curtain go aside and you go, wow, we do have a deal here and it can work. But I've had other people I've played footsie with for years and they've been so successful. But I don't think they've ever gotten to where they could have been if they would have just totally been open in the very beginning and said, this is where we're at.
And I don't think it's too much to ask someone to be all in on you if you are not all in on yourself.
True.
So, yeah.
It's hard. It's hard. It's hard to give up a little control of a company when you think it should be going in one direction and somebody says, wait a minute, maybe there's another avenue. But you have to follow your dreams, but you also have to listen to what reality is, and that's important.
Yeah, there's wisdom. I mean, plenty of success here in Monterey, a lot of great role models and resources, so it's not a bad idea to listen to those who've gone before you.
Yeah.
And it's a great way to pass on a legacy, too.
It's absolutely, because eventually you'll be in a position where you can really help someone. So don't go away. We're going to be back in a minute with Yolanda Clarke, Powder River Industries, and we're going to talk about the company, because I know you've heard a little bit about getting it started. Now we're going to find out what it is. Thank you.